And with us, we got Dan Blanner from the Amazon Aurora team. Dan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey guys, my name is Dan Bleener. I'm a solutions architect specializing in our Aurora DSQL product.
So I gotta say, I was in Matt Garman's keynote. I was on the floor, and it's obviously generative AI is exciting, and we had a lot of the stuff, a lot of great things like Nova, and it was interesting. But I was really excited when he started talking about DSQL. Yep. So we just had a segment about Aurora Global Database. Can you give us an overview? Where does DSQL fit in? Comparatively, because they're sort of similar, but it sounds like there's a lot of differences.
Yeah, sure. So DSQL was created in response to customers that were doing multi-region, but they wanted to go beyond sort of the primary secondary model that you get, with our current database offerings. They wanted to run active-active. They wanted to be able to accept both read and write traffic in two regions at the same time. Maybe they've got customers on different coasts and they wanted to have sort of the same latency experience. They wanted to be able to accept both reads and writes, in multiple regions. And we also have a lot of customers that operate in like regulated spaces where they have very strict disaster recovery requirements where when they fail over from one region to another, they have to do it immediately, and they can't risk losing transactions that might be in flight because of replication lag. And so DSQL is created primarily to serve those customers, to give folks a database that enables active-active architectures, or to enable those customers that needed to fail over immediately. And the way it does that, it uses a synchronous cross-region replication. So with DSQL, both regions are always constantly in sync. They're always strongly consistent with one another, so that they can take both reads and writes in each of those regions. And there's no real concept of a failover because both of those regions are always ready to go. The database in both regions is always ready to go. So again, you can pick an endpoint and just interact with it without having to worry about when that data makes its way over to the second region.
Yeah, I like that we're talking about a bunch of different use cases because our customers are very different, all types of different customers. They have different requirements. And that's something that, we talk to them about. What are your requirements? How do we meet your requirements? And there are a lot of companies would just want to fail over and just have that DR, and hopefully, to be honest with you, they hope they never fail over, but they want to be able to know that they can. But it's nice to hear that there are other use cases where active-active has always been really hard, by the way. It's been something like, why can't we be active-active? Well, that's just not possible, or something like that. So it's nice to see that it is possible now.
Not only that, but I think it's going to enable people. I think more customers that had never considered active-active before are going to now, because we're taking care of the database part of that. And so that's often the hardest part of the equation is the database, when operating in an active-active state. So, I think just like cloud made more customers look at multi-region or multi-data center disaster recovery requirements, cloud enabled that. I think this database is going to enable more customers to dip their toe into active-active architectures. And so I'm really excited to see that. I think once customers start figuring that stuff out, they're really going to love it because it really opens up a lot of other capabilities in terms of traffic routing and where to direct their customers.
Yeah. So we just saw Aurora Global Database. What's the difference between Global Database and Aurora DSQL?
Well, there's a lot. So let's talk about in terms of customers first. The architectures are totally different. They're totally different technology stacks. But let's talk about it from a customer perspective. So Aurora Global has higher feature parity with open source and community Postgres. So DSQL is open source compatible, but it doesn't support all the features of Postgres today. We'll narrow that gap over time, but today there's quite a few there. And so if you need complete feature parity, then Aurora Global or Aurora is the platform for you. In terms of multi-region, if you need more of a disaster recovery architecture where you want always very fast transactions locally, and you're okay with a little bit of eventual consistency to get to the other region, then you want to go with Aurora Global. With Aurora DSQL, that's synchronous cross-region replication. And so it's great to have those regions always in sync, but it doesn't come for free. You pay for that on a per transaction basis. You pay some cross-region latency at commit time with Aurora DSQL. And that can be unappealing for a lot of use cases that are more local latency sensitive. And so Aurora Global is great for customers that primarily are looking for maybe more of a disaster recovery architecture where they've got a little bit longer RTO and RPO times.
Yeah, I can imagine like a use case, like not even a store, but maybe like a forum or something. You can handle a minute or two down. Nothing's going to happen, but something financial related, maybe you can't handle more than a second down, or you don't want to handle more than a second down, and you're willing to pay for it because your requirements are dictating that. So that makes total sense.
Exactly right. And just from an operational point of view, Aurora DSQL is natively serverless. So it's serverless like Dynamo is serverless. And so the overall operational overhead for running DSQL is minimal. It's really small. There's not much you have to do because you don't see or have access to any of the underlying infrastructure. And that really conveys into multi-region because, having to do failovers, even with our managed services, it requires quite a bit of effort. You've got to understand the state of your replication lag. In the case of an unexpected failover, you have to sort of understand the state of your database. And there might be transactions that might have been committed to one region but didn't make it over to the other. You might have other checklists involved there, and there's some time it takes to fail over. And of course, you have to fail back. And so DSQL gets rid of all of that essentially. And so it really does reduce your operational burden for doing multi-region.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, when you talk about getting DSQL up and running in Aurora, is it for more established customers, or could it be something that a startup could put their hands on? Is there kind of a maturity level required?
No, not at all. It's great for startups. It's great for established customers. So I think startups are going to love it. As we talk to customers, I mentioned that this database was built for multi-region use cases, but it works fantastic in single region.
I was going to just ask that, like, would you use it in a single region?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got customers, number one, because it's, natively serverless, there's no downtime because of maintenance windows or patching, all that happens online. And so there's no downtime, and customers just love that. They just want that. And so they might use DSQL for that. But we have a lot of startups where they just don't have DBAs. They got a bunch of devs. They don't want to spend any time, managing infrastructure, and they're going to use DSQL because you're up and running in a few minutes. And then you've got a lot of customers like SaaS providers that may be operating a database cluster per customer, per their end customer. And even with managed database services, managing hundreds to thousands of databases has a lot of operational overhead, and DSQL, again, because of its serverless nature, will, really reduce that operational burden. I think if you have an existing workload, you're already on Aurora, for example, then you probably don't need to migrate over to DSQL unless you need some of the aspects that DSQL offers, active, or maybe you're hitting a scaling plateau or a scaling limit with Aurora and you're wondering where to go. But otherwise, I would recommend, you probably want to stay on Aurora. But if you have a new use case and you have like an OLTP use case, where you need a relational database, then you should consider DSQL to start with, and then go from there.
OLTP, of course, is online transactional processing versus OLAP. So we're talking about, if you have a bank account database, when you deposit $5, you want to make sure nothing goes wrong, and that $5 comes out of your account. So all good. So Dan, you have a demo. Let's see this in action.
All right. Yeah, cool. All right. Let me share my screen here. So, all right, there we go. Do you guys see my screen?
Coming up.
All right, cool. So let's just start with a visual depiction of what I'm about to show you. Here we have a multi-region cluster with Aurora DSQL, and you see Aurora DSQL sort of in the purpley boxes there. We've got two regions. Actually, with multi-region, we give you three regions. Two of those regions have your complete data set and have endpoints that you can connect to. There's a third region called a witness region that you don't actually see in your account, and there's no endpoint for you to connect to. It's there to participate in transaction commit quorum and to vote in the case of a network partition. And so your applications will talk to your local Aurora DSQL endpoint in those two data regions. So I will show you.
And every engineer or architect who has worked with any type of cluster, their ears just popped up when you said voting process, witness, Yes. And that's always a nightmare usually to figure out how that works, what happened, why something didn't come up, where's the witness. But it's nice that this being a managed service, you don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. We take care of all that for you. Okay, cool. So let me show you the cluster creation workflow. So I've got two windows here. One is in US East 1, Northern Virginia, and the other is in Ohio. So we're going to create a multi-region cluster in across US East 1 and US East 2. So we'll go here. Let me just expand this a little bit. We've got an existing cluster, but we'll create a new one. And here you go. This is the entire cluster creation workflow. And so if I just needed a single region cluster, I would just hit create cluster and, we'd be off to the races. But I'm going to make this a lot more complicated by making it a multi-region cluster. And so we're going to click this box right there. And that's pretty much it there. So we're going to pick our second data region, our second linked cluster. This is the other region in which we'll have an endpoint that we can connect to. And then we'll choose our witness region. There aren't many choices here. We're still in public preview. But in time, there'll be more regions there. And then just for convenience, I'm going to turn off deletion protection because I like to live dangerously.
All right.
And then we'll name our cluster, my cluster, and then we'll hit go. And that's it. That's the entire cluster creation workflow. So compare that to, trying to create a multi-region cluster in like a data center, or even compare it to some of our other database products. You realize this is a lot easier.
Yeah. Or even RDS, it takes a few minutes at least to come up. And it's funny you talk about this because the favorite question I ever get asked is, Jeff, can you show me how to create a Dynamo table? I'm like, absolutely, I can do that. Look, it takes about 7 seconds. And what you just did took about 10 seconds maybe. So
yeah, and the actual cluster creation will take about 2 minutes. But the actual click-through, just took seconds. So if I go over here to Ohio and I go into DSQL, you can see that my cluster is creating over here. So I didn't have to go over to a different region and do any setup over there, just creating it in one location, created in both. And then if I were to try to flip over to US West 2 to see with the witness region, well, this is not going to let me do it. No, this is not going to let me do it. Okay. But in any case, if I go over there, you're not going to see any components. You're not going to see anything for the witness region. There's no networking to set up. There's no security groups or security policies or IAM permissions. It's all happening internal on the AWS network. And so there's nothing for you to manage over in the witness region. Nothing for you to have to worry about securing either.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I see a really neat comment here on LinkedIn from Andrew Baker. He says, we use an optimized Aurora DSQL to process payments for 22 million South African clients, and we peaked at 12 CPUs on Black Friday. So another retail use case there.
All right. Yeah, sounds good. We love retail use cases. We love short, fast transactions distributed over a wide data set. All right.
Yeah,
cool. So, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, let me show you how quick it is to connect into this, just to show you that, this is really just, if you're familiar with Postgres, then, this will be very comfortable with this. So I've got my SQL client here. Let me grab the endpoint for Northern Virginia. So we'll just grab that. Actually, before I do that, let me show you this. I've got this other cluster that's already created. Let me show you what a created cluster looks like here in the console. As you can see, there's not a whole lot here. There's no infrastructure. There's no capacity parameters. There's nothing really to see. You've got the endpoint that you're going to connect to. You've got a cluster ID and the ARN, which is useful for IAM policies. You can click into the linked regions, and this will show you that this region or this cluster is also connected to Ohio with a witness in US West 2.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, you said you don't have to worry about the witness region, but you do see where it is.
This is the only place you'll see it. Yeah. So if I went into US West 2, you wouldn't see anything. In fact, DSQL is not even supported there. So you get an error in the console currently until GA. But this is the only place where you'll see the witness region. And then you can see your tags and then, the usual CloudWatch metrics. This is pretty much it. And if I hit modify to change the cluster, these are all the things you can change. And that's about it.
Wait, slow down. I want to make sure I see everything on the page.
You got it all?
Yeah.
All right. Cool. All right. Yeah. So let me show you how to connect real quick, just to show you that it's, as easy as what you'd hope. So we've got our little DB or SQL client. We'll go to create connection. We'll put in for the host our endpoint. We're going to connect to US East 1. I can just as easily put in US East 2. We'll go to admin. Now, here's one difference. We don't support password auth. We only support IAM authentication. And so you'll need to get an IAM token. There's a real easy way of doing that in the console. You can hit connect. We're going to connect as the admin. So we're just going to grab this token here. You can easily generate a token with the CLI or the SDK to do it programmatically or through automation. But we're going to do it in the console there.
And this is for demo processes only. You probably wouldn't normally connect as admin there, but just for demo purposes only. Just
exactly right. We'll throw best practices out the window for live demos. Okay, so here we go. And I know the font is really small. I apologize for that. But as you can see, we've connected. We can browse our databases. I've got a example database called Xpoints for our reward points application. And there you go. You can browse your database objects. So yeah, it is a SQL database. Cool. All right.
That's great.
So let me show you some of the bi-directional nature of Aurora DSQL. So let me go into my console here, and again, I've got sessions. Oops, there we go. Live demo. Fun.
Because that is something you have to consider. A lot of times, is it synchronous? Is it asynchronous? Does the transaction completely fulfill before that sync, or not? So knowing that going into this is going to help you as you're developing your application.
Yeah, absolutely. If you get a successful commit response back, then what that means is your data is already durable in the other region. So there's no replication lag. There's no asynchronous stuff to worry about at all.
Gotcha.
So I'm just going to run a couple quick commands to connect using the command line here. So I've got a session open in US East 1, and now I've got one in US East 2. So if I come over to US East 1, select star from junk table, you'll see that junk is not there. Do the same from here, nothing on my sleeve. So if I create table junk ID int primary key, we'll say a message, which is a varchar.
You're doing some live SQL, right? Like for everyone, like
yeah, look at that.
Paste it. You're typing it out, man. That's
fresh. Let's see. And so there you go. So the table is there. What happened is we just got an optimistic concurrency exception because this session had an old version of the catalog. So just restart there, and that worked. So insert into junk values 10, and we'll just add like a message in there.
Great.
And then we'll just do a select there. No, see, there it is. And now to show you that it's bi-directional, insert into junk values 20, and we'll say, there we go. Oops, there we go. And then we'll select this.
Hello. Huh.
Yeah, and now we have that. Bi-directional. Now let me show you, we use an optimistic concurrency control protocol. I stutter, so those hard C's are a nightmare. So let me show you how that works. The database protects you from concurrency collisions. And the way it does that is upon commit time, it looks to see if there's been a conflicting transaction either in your region or in the other region. So let's see how that works. So
because technically you and me could have tried to commit Krang at the exact same time, or, feasibly at the exact same time. And this is what you're talking about.
Exactly right. So we're going to update our row with the ID 10. Now I've started a transaction. Oops. And actually set message, update junk, set message equal April. What did I do wrong here? Oh, I know I did wrong. I didn't do begin semicolon. Now we go there. Oops. Live demo, update junk, set message equal. Okay, you know what? Let's just try it again. Oops. All right, we'll say begin, and then we'll say update junk, set message equal. All right. All right, now we've got an open transaction. We have not committed yet, and we'll do update junk, set message.
Do you need to begin here?
No, we're gonna use auto commit.
Okay.
ID equals 10, so we'll update that row on this side, And then now, if we try to commit over back in the other region, now don't forget, we're doing 2 different updates in 2 different regions on the same row. And so we commit, and the database just caught that, and it gave an OCC exception. And so it protected you from the concurrency collision. And so we do this. And so what we recommend for customers to do when they're building their application is, rather than relying on pessimistic locking, which we don't support, so you don't lock your row, you don't lock data that you're going to update, and then maybe wait on a lock if somebody else has it before you do your update. What we do instead is we just run sort of a naive query that doesn't consider any concurrency at all, and we try to commit, and we look for that OCC exception. And what we recommend is retrying your transaction and your business logic over again, and then maybe do that up to X number of times, depending on your application. And so that's the overall model that you're going to do with an optimistic concurrency system like DSQL.
Gotcha. So go ahead, Jasmine.
I'm just going to say we have to wrap. This is phenomenal. I love seeing this in action. The live demo, of course, always brings me so much joy, especially on a Friday at the end of the week. So thank you, Dan. Where can customers go to get started? I know you mentioned that it's out in preview right now.
Yeah, right in the console. You don't need any approval or allow listing. Just go to your console, look for DSQL, and you can begin. We're in public preview right now, and we'll be going GA sometime soon. So go ahead and start playing with it, and let us know what you think. We love to hear feedback.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. Take care.